Welcome in another edition of our video podcast from WVSports.com. This is Musings from the Mountains. I'm Keenan Cummings, managing editor for WVSports.com.
And I'm Patrick Kotnik, staff writer for WVSports.com.
And it's here, what we've all been waiting for. Horns up, horns down. Texas week, homecoming for West Virginia, 3:30 kick on ABC. Series between the two teams, West Virginia's 5-3 against the Longhorns overall, which is, I think most people would probably be surprised by that. Another surprising stat, Texas is 2-1 in Morgantown. I think that's interesting as well. So West Virginia's gone on the road and win, and Texas has gone on the road and win. But a big game for West Virginia, number 11 Texas coming in. Patrick, to quote Denny Green, they are who we thought they were.
Exactly, Keenan. I mean, I know we say, it seems like week after week we say, well, we'll find out more about this West Virginia team. This is going to be West Virginia's toughest test to date, obviously, against a Texas team that ranks 11th in the country right now. I'm talking there's various aspects of the game will be put to the test for West Virginia, such as their passing game against a depleted Texas secondary, their offensive line, their defensive line. I mean, there's a bunch of aspects that are going to be tested for West Virginia, and we're going to get into them here later.
Yeah, Texas, Sam Ehlinger is the engine that makes this thing go. Defending him is not easy. He's probably going to make Vic Koenig as nervous as Tom Herman was last year on that two-point conversion. If you haven't seen that GIF, I recommend you check it out.
You just sent it to me this morning.
Yeah, I recommend you check it out. It's quite unnerving. But West Virginia's got a challenge. This Longhorns offense averages close to 42 points a game. They're second in the country on third down, so they're ahead of the sticks. Ehlinger has just been incredible this year, running the football, throwing the football, completing next to 73% of his passes. When he does run the football, a lot of it is not off design runs. It's off scrambles. So West Virginia is going to have to account for him in several different ways, averaging over 8.8 yards per attempt. So he's throwing the football down the field as well, not necessarily dinking and dunking. It's going to be a challenge for West Virginia, Pat.
And you mentioned Sam Ehlinger and his ability to run the ball. We saw what West Virginia was like against Kelly Bryant in Missouri. You know, Kelly Bryant really had the ability to elude tackles, to extend plays. Now, we've talked about over and over again with this coaching staff, their ability to make halftime adjustments and make big adjustments, especially all the adjustments they made from Missouri to NC State week. It's going to be interesting to see with that experience facing kind of like a scrambling quarterback like that. Does that pay dividends to their approach into stopping Sam Ehlinger? That of course awaits to be seen. But obviously West Virginia's history when it comes to scrambling quarterbacks, against Kelly Bryant, not too good.
Yeah, and Ehlinger's been really good this year, especially on the blitz. When teams have blitzed him this year, he's 35 of 47. Throwing for 425 yards and 7 touchdowns with no turnovers. So I think West Virginia's going to have to pick and choose what they do here. They can do a lot of things offensively, though. They have two very good backs that they rotate. Actually rotate as many as 3. These guys make people miss. They forced 21 missed tackles this year. They're able to do some things that West Virginia's struggled with, 220-pound rock-solid running backs. And then they have I'd say a whole kit and caboodle of wide receivers that they're going to throw the ball to. The real kind of the sweet spot, I guess the honey hole, as Vic Koenig said earlier this week.
The turkey hole, like John Gruden said?
Yes, the turkey hole has been that H spot. That's where Devin Duvernay plays and Jake Smith. 8 of the touchdowns have come there. Almost half of Sam Ehlinger's yards have come there on the year between those two players. And it's just a position they throw to a lot. A lot of it's yard after catch. They get the football out fast, let them make plays. Duvernay has 40 catches this year. 40. That's through 4 games. So he's going to catch the ball a lot. Most of his yardage comes after the catch.
And you mentioned the yards after the catch. 748 total yards after the catch for Texas this season. Duvernay, along with their running back, Keontae Ingram, they've accounted for 400 of those yards after the catch. So these guys are really dangerous in space, and that's something that Texas is going to try to execute against this West Virginia defense.
Yeah, and going back to the running backs a little bit, Texas, it's a big play offense too. Sam Ehlinger has a couple runs over 10 yards. Texas running backs have 14 runs over 10 yards. So they're going to stretch West Virginia. They're going to make them try to beat them in a lot of different ways. I think West Virginia, coming into this game, they're going to have to develop, first of all, plan for Ehlinger. They're going to have to tackle a lot better than they have at times this year. Missed tackles has really been a bugaboo at times, especially against Missouri when the quarterback was running the ball. And they're going to have to force Ehlinger to go some other places. Yes, he has completed passes downfield at times, but they cannot let him force feed Duvernay and Smith the ball in those situations. Going to be interesting as well defensively. Texas has some starters out. They've had some changes to their approach. Earlier in the year, they were a lot more aggressive. They're going to show a lot more multiple coverages. They're a 3 down front. Their line weighs over 300 pounds apiece. so they're beefy up front, but they've scaled it back a little bit. Going to do more zone. They will bring blitz at time. They will bring pressure, especially against inexperienced quarterbacks, but not as aggressive as what we've seen in the Pat.
When it comes to this Texas defense, like you said, I mentioned earlier with their secondary, they're going to have a couple starters out this week. For West Virginia, they've struggled with completing passes down the field. Austin Kendall just 4 of 18 on passes that travel 20 or more yards. I know three of those completions have gone for touchdowns, but the question is, can this offense, pull out some of the big plays? They'll have the opportunity to. I said that in the pre-snap read that published this morning, which you all should check out. But can they execute some of those big plays, and especially for the offensive line too? Big key for this week. We mentioned the size of Texas's defensive line. Can West Virginia, can they get movement? I mean, we've seen the offensive line, they've improved. The run game has improved over the past couple of weeks. But a key this week is to just be physical, but along with being physical, you have to be under control. They like to move around the defensive line a lot. I think it's going to be interesting, too. We mentioned Neil Brown with the wide receivers last week. Wasn't impressed with their performance against Kansas. They need to block on the perimeter. They need to make plays. He also pointed out that the reason for them, kind of grinding out the win there in the second half against Kansas and taking control of the time of possession was due to the wide receiver play. That's why, that's what forced them to go to the ground. Now, if that happens, that same thing happens this week, will West Virginia be able to run the ball? I mean, they got to be able to make plays, down the field, but they also have to be able to run the ball.
I don't see this as a game that West Virginia is going to be able to grind out per se. I think West Virginia is going to have to score. I agree with Pat. I think they're going to have to hit on some of those plays that they have not been able to hit on in the past. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to do it. I think that's going to be one of the keys of the game. And then obviously football 101, what team can run the football, what team can stop the run. That's going to be a key for every single game in college football history, pretty much. Moving on, though, we're going to take your questions as we do every week. We have not rehearsed these. We're going to take them kind of as they come.
Live.
Yeah, let's go. Let's see what happens. Pat, what do we got here?
All right, first question. Any word on whether or not Drayshawn Miller will play this season?
No. Well, maybe. Maybe is the best answer. At this point, he is rehabbing after surgery. I do not see him playing until later in the year. If he does play, it's going to be a situation where 4 games or under, he's going to redshirt. Mm-hmm. So that is the positive, though. At least you do get him another full 2 years because he had that red shirt in play.
And the cornerback play so far this season for West Virginia has been pretty darn good for them. Especially we mentioned Hakeem Bailey leads the team with 5 pass breakups. Keith Washington has accounted for both of the team's interceptions. Quarterback play has been good, but you said they have a couple of freshmen, Nick Troy Fortune, Tay Mayo, some guys that they need to develop for depth. But like you said, if they can get Drayshawn, get him another year, redshirt him, that'll serve as some benefit for them moving forward. Next question here has to deal with the run game. What are the odds West Virginia gets above 100 rushing yards in the game against Texas?
I think good.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think West Virginia is able to run the ball a little bit on Texas. I like what they've been able to do against 3-man fronts the last 2 weeks. I think that Neil Brown has kind of shown his mettle a little bit, shown that he's not going to bang his head against the wall if it's not working. He's going to do a lot of different things creatively to window dress things, to get things moving. I expect him to do a lot of that motion, a lot of the things that's got defenses going side to side. And I think that they're going to do it. I think that the team is definitely going to get 100 yards. Will one player? Probably, maybe.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because Texas, up until the Oklahoma State game, they had not allowed a single 100-yard rusher. They allowed 2 against Oklahoma State. And you mentioned, too, with that size of the Texas D-line, does West Virginia, do they go to what has worked, in the first couple of games, was using some of that jet sweep with, Tevin Bush, Sam James. I feel like they will. I feel like that could be, an important part to having any kind of success for them offensively.
Yeah, I don't see them lining up and just beating them one-on-one. I think they're going to have to win.
They got to get creative.
Yeah.
Next question here. How do you think Vic Koenning will style the defense to counteract Sam Ehlinger's run game, especially in the red zone?
Well, I think the interesting part about this is Sam Ehlinger's been a little bit different. This year, 155 of his 200-some yards rushing have come off scramble plays, so they're not designed. It'll be interesting to see if they change that up, if they go back to doing. They did that more against LSU, more design runs. But West Virginia's going to have to account for him, whether that's dropping a guy that's going to shadow him, whether that's making sure he can't get out of the pocket. I mean, you're going to have to account for what he can do. It's not easy. If it was easy, he wouldn't be a Heisman Trophy candidate. and one of the top players in the country right now. But I think that they're going to come in with a plan, and they're going to have to execute it.
Now, I believe that was a question that we had later, is that are they going to have someone that's going to shadow him? And if so, who do you think that will be?
If West Virginia does that, I think the obvious choice to me would be Chandler.
Josh Chandler?
Yeah, just because he's athletic enough to do it. But Ellinger's a big guy. I mean, if he gets out there, he's hard to bring down. I think that what he's been able to do is improve himself as a passer, and it's made what he's been able to do his feet so much more lethal than it was even last year.
And he has total control of that offense too. He's confident. He's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Next question here: how do you think West Virginia stacks up on the line of scrimmage with Texas?
Kind of addressed this earlier. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I do. I think it's not going to be necessarily a one-on-one trying to beat them up front, push them around. If that happens, it's going to be a very good day for West Virginia. But I do think they'll have some success defensively. We'll see. Texas is a big defensive line, but West Virginia's had a lot of success this year up front. I think the new style of defense has given opposing offenses problems, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it again. I think Dante Stills is playing at a very high level. Darius Stills as well. So I don't think it's a perfect matchup. I think Texas has the size, but West Virginia's been feisty this year.
As we mentioned earlier, winning the battle up front is key on both sides of the ball. I feel like with Darius and Dante, those guys I think will be an important part for any success on defense that they might have. But also they got to count on guys like Jeffrey Pooler. Be interested to see what they do maybe with guys like Jordan Jefferson, see how many snaps he maybe gets. Along with the Stills brothers, seeing what they can do, and also the guys behind them. And we mentioned offensive line as well. Question about next year. How many starters does West Virginia have to replace next year?
Oh, doing me dirty here. I'm going to do this off the top of my head. Well, you're losing Colton McKivitz for sure. You're losing Kennedy McCoy.
Martell. Still got Kendall.
Yeah, you got Kendall. You're going to lose
George Campbell.
Would he count as a starter, though? I'm not.
He plays.
Yeah. Defensively, you're going to lose quite a bit of guys, too. You're going to lose both your starting corners, which is your biggest loss.
Yeah.
A couple other guys sprinkled in between, though. But overall, though, this is a relatively young team, and I think you've heard Neil Brown say that. They're going to have to do some patchwork, probably take some JUCO guys, maybe a few grad transfers or two, as you saw this year. But I think there's a lot of talent, young talent in the program. I've talked about this on the show a lot. I think this team's talented. It's just young, and with young comes inconsistency. And you're seeing some of that grow up, Sam James and some others that are playing very well. But I don't think it's dire straits. I think you definitely lose less going into next year than you lost coming into this year.
Now, on the topic of next season, who of the current recruits do you think makes an early impact next year?
Man, that's tough. I think for sure Quay Mays. I think he has to. He's a junior college guy. Same can be said for Jacob Gamble. I think he was recruited. Jacob Gamble's a tackle. Quay Mays is a nose guard. Gamble is 6'7", 325 pounds. He's recruited to step in and play right away at tackle. He's going to get here in December along with Mays. So I think those are your two obvious picks. Maybe S.L. McCall, another junior college guy, an outside linebacker, pass rusher type. Those are obvious. Guys that wouldn't be so obvious, I think Jairo Feveris, cornerback. I think he has a chance. I saw him in camp. He looks seasoned. He's an older guy already. He's already 20-some years old. So I think he's a guy that's going to step in and probably provide some depth at least right away.
Now, going back to this year's team and the Texas matchup, could we see a 5 wide receiver set this weekend with Kennedy McCoy in the slot against Texas?
Could we? Absolutely. Will we? I don't know. If I knew the answer to a lot of these things, I would not be doing this, as commonly people say. But I do think that West Virginia is going to have to get creative. I've made that pretty clear throughout this show. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball right at them. I think they're going to have to do some things, and getting them in space is basically an extension of your run game. Some of those quick passes on the outside or doing the jet sweep handoff. I could see any of that happening.
But I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, too, like we mentioned earlier, they gotta hit the big plays down the field. You gotta be able to execute. I said they'll have a pretty good opportunity, especially with this secondary for Texas not being at full strength. But can they do it? I mean, obviously that waits to be seen. So far, I mean, like I said,
the bye week will help.
Bye week will help, exactly.
Yeah, I think that they should be better, at least in that department.
Next question here: what freshman player do you think will have the biggest impact this weekend?
Shocker if you've ever listened to me do anything. If we're talking about freshmen in general, Sam James.
Redshirt freshman.
Yeah, he's a redshirt freshman. Freshman overall. I think it's time to unleash Tyke Smith a little bit. He has not played. His snaps do not dictate his production. He has 8 tackles and has only played a handful of snaps. The guys are always around the ball, and I think it was very telling when I asked Vic Koenig this week about freshmen and playing. He said it's been kind of a ultimatum from the top down to get more snaps in there for Tyke. So I think a breakout's coming for him.
Now, I will agree with Tyke. I'll say Sam James too, but being a former offensive lineman myself, being a former center, I'm going to also go with Bryson Mays. We've talked about how important the center position is. West Virginia has also had 3 different guys play at the center position. Matt Moore knocked on wood a couple weeks ago. Bryson Mays could be their, very well looks to be their center of the future, and it's very important, especially against this big Texas defensive line. For him to communicate with the rest of the offensive line, make those calls. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Do they try to pound at him, or they could do that, but yet again, they're going to have to get creative. Like you said, do some of those toss jet sweeps and all that. But offensive line communication, technique, coaching, being under control, big keys for the offensive line this week. I feel like Bryson Mays being at the center of it all is going to be a critical piece to that.
A center taking a center. Can't believe that.
Next question here. With Texas's corner coverage may not be the strongest part of their game, do we see more 20-plus yard passes spread the field and give West Virginia more balance for the run game?
I think we've been yelling at you the entire time. Yes, I think that's what they have to do. West Virginia's only completed 4 of 18 this year. When they have completed them, good things have happened. 3 of those are touchdowns, but they're going to have to. I think that Texas is weak in the secondary right now. They still got good players, don't get me wrong. But when you're losing 3 starters at least and some other guys that are banged up, there's opportunities. And I think that West Virginia knows that. It's probably something they've been working on all week during the bye, timing and some other elements that can help them there. But it comes down to a simple thing. I asked Neil last week, and he said, we got to complete them, Keenan, and that's what it comes down to. They've got to be able to complete them.
Now, going back to the recruiting side of things, are any of West Virginia's current commits or prospects Mike linebackers?
Prospects, yes. Current commits, no. They still got a lot of numbers there, really, and some guys that are still developing. But there are guys on the board. Went over some of those on the Blue Lot this week. I recommend you check those out. But right now, they do not have any in the class. There might be room for 1, but there's also a lot of needs at other spots, guys, and they've only got 9-10 spots left in this class.
And we've talked about, so far the production at Mike linebacker hasn't exactly been good for West Virginia with Dylan Tockery. They've had Shea Campbell play there, odd stuff, but they definitely need more production, in terms of this season at the Mike linebacker position. Final question here, is the staff willing to slide Josh Norwood over to quarterback occasionally to spell Washington and Bailey, or are they all in on the 2 freshmen in Fortune and Mayo?
I think they're all in on the 2 starters. I think that's pretty clear. They've played almost every snap this year at those positions. Would they move him? They could. Yeah, I don't think they will. I think, why did you move him in the first place if you're going to move him back? I think he's been very productive there. It's the other safety spot I think there's a little bit more concern you want to see more production out of. But Norwood's been very good at free safety. I don't see any reason to move him there. Now, if you have an injury, yeah, you could look at things. But it comes down to, you got to develop those guys. Nick Troy's got to get better. He's got to be able to play. Tay maybe, Devin Wade, maybe Drayshawn Miller later in the year. It's not realistic. I asked this question to Vic this week because I just don't think it's realistic to count on 2 corners to play the amount of snaps that they've played going forward. West Virginia's going to play a lot of teams at tempo. It starts with Texas this week. They struggled with tempo against Missouri, so they're going to have to develop some guys. And whether that means throwing some true freshmen in there that aren't ready, that might be what they have to do. But one way or the other, more guys are going to have to play.
And for the most part, too, this group has been, pretty. I mean, they've done a pretty good job eliminating the big plays. We've talked about that before, aside from that 75-yard touchdown.
That was the safety's fault. Mm-hmm. So I think cornerback play has been a lot better than you probably would have pegged coming in.
Yeah.
Especially when you realize that 2 of the safeties were leaving before the season started, and you were going to have to move one of your corners to safety.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Wow. Wow. A lot of questions there, a lot of talking. Now it's the part you've been waiting for. Prediction time. I'll go first this week, Pat.
You have the floor.
No. I think West Virginia is going to play well. I really do think West Virginia is going to play well. But it's hard for me to take West Virginia in this game against Texas. I think Texas is a very, very good football team. They were a couple plays away, probably an ill-timed blitz, I was talking about earlier, being too aggressive from beating LSU. I think West Virginia's going to play this game very well. I think they're going to come out, probably have a lead early, but I just like what Sam Ehlinger's been doing, and I like what Texas has been doing as a whole. I think Texas is going to win this game 41-27. Don't hate me for predicting that. I've been wrong before, obviously, but that's what I think is going to happen.
I mean, we both predicted NC State to beat them, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they're already surprising.
Look what happened. So, Keenan, I'm with you there. I'm going to pick Texas to win this game as well. I really feel like the bye week is going to, prove to be a benefit for West Virginia in terms of preparation and all that. We know this staff. They really emphasize the attention to detail. I feel like this team will be prepared, but to me, Texas has too much, just firepower, especially offensively. And I feel like even with that depleted secondary, I mean, for West Virginia to have to complete some of those big plays down the field, at this point, I really just got to see it to believe it. So I'm going to take Texas 38-28.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern about this game is, can West Virginia hit on some of those plays? Can they sustain drives? Because I know Texas can. They've already proven it. West Virginia has had to rely on sustaining drives against defenses that honestly are not going to be as good as Texas's. So if they can frustrate Ehlinger, be able to do some things that, quite frankly, no other team in the country has been able to do yet to them, then yeah, I think West Virginia can win this game. But right now, I think it's just a smarter play to go with the Longhorns at this stage. Mm-hmm. But thanks for tuning in again. I hope you had fun. We did.
Always.
Hope you like the ever-improving production of this product. But tune in again. If you're watching for the first time, go ahead and hit subscribe. We do this regularly, usually 2 or 3 times a week. We'll be back after the game Saturday. I recommend you tune in for our immediate thoughts. Hopefully we're wrong, completely on our predictions. I mean, that wouldn't be surprising. But like I said, tune in again. We'll be back soon. This has been another edition of Musings from the Mountains.